the National Police Week celebration for the police officers who have given their lives in service to their communities. This is a very bipartisan hour that we're going to have, and I'm glad and proud to have with us here on the same side Josh Gottheimer from New Jersey, who is, without a doubt, I think one of the most supportive of our law enforcement officers in the chamber. And I've always enjoyed working with you, Josh.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
You want to go first?
Yeah. I will, Mr. Speaker, I'll begin by turning my phone off. Thank you. I'll begin with this quote. As a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve mankind, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence and disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all men to liberty, equality, and justice. That is the first line of the law enforcement officer's code of ethics, a code every officer whose name is etched into the National Law Enforcement Officer Memorial lived and died by. And today I rise to honor the 363 fallen officers whose names were added to the wall this year, including 10 officers from Florida. Sadly, these officers are joining over 24,000 of their brothers and sisters whose names are already etched into that wall. Each fallen officer said goodbye to their loved ones as they put on their gun and badge to protect and serve their community, not knowing if they'd ever return home. They stood as a shield between the vulnerable citizens that they vowed to protect and those intent on doing them harm. Of the 363 officers added this year, 111 were killed in the line of duty in 2025, which is 111 too many. Ambushes and unprovoked attacks on our nation's law enforcement officers are happening at an alarming rate, making the job of a law enforcement officer even more dangerous. Almost daily in 2025, an officer was shot in the line of duty, totaling 347 shot, and 45 of those officers died. Specifically, there were 67 separate ambush-style attacks on law enforcement officers, which left 90 officers shot and 22 of them fatally. There was also over 90,000 officer assaults last year, indicating a rate of 13.8 assaults per 100 officers, the highest officer assault rate in 10 years. This violence upon our officers is unacceptable, and ambushes on our officers must stop. That's why I want to make it clear to the criminal element who are intent on attacking our officers, if you target law enforcement, Congress will target you. This Congress, Josh Gottheimer and I, introduced the Protect and Serve Act, a bipartisan bill to increase penalties on those who target, ambush, and harm our officers, and I urge all of my colleagues to support passage of this very important legislation. It's our responsibility to protect those who protect us. Of the 111 officers killed on the line of duty this past year, I'd like to take just a minute to honor a few of them. On July 23rd, Ohio's Lorain Police Department officers Philip C. Wagner and Peter Gale were taking their lunch break in their police vehicle when a 28-year-old man with a high-powered rifle opened fire on them and later a responding officer, Brent Payne. The officers were able to return fire, killing the heavily armed assailant who had ambushed the two patrol cars parked at the end of a dead-end street. Officer Gale and Payne were critically injured, but made recoveries. Sadly, officer and United States Marine Corps veteran Philip C. Wagner's end of watch was July 24th, 2025. My thoughts and prayers are with his family, including his wife and 3 children, his friends, and the men and women of the Lorain Police Department. I also rise today to honor the life and service of 4 Northern York County Regional Police Department detectives in southern Pennsylvania, whose lives were taken in a senseless ambush on September 17th of 2025. Detective Sergeant Cody Becker, along with Detectives Mark Baker and Isaiah Emmenheiser, were attempting to serve a warrant for a stalking suspect when they were met by gunfire that took the lives of 3 detectives and wounded 2 others. Together, Detective Sergeant Becker, Detective Baker, and Detective Emmenheiser served the Northern York County Regional Police Department for a combined 57 years. And I'll close with this, Mr. Speaker. Ralph Emerson once said that the purpose of life is not to be happy, it's to be useful. It's to have it's to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you lived and lived well. And these officers did just that. They lived well. And we are forever grateful for their service and the heroic legacy of these fallen officers. I ask, Mr. Speaker, that all of us and all of those watching, that we would all live the rest of our lives worthy of these officers' sacrifice. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve and I yield to my good friend from New Jersey, Josh Gottheimer.
Mr. Speaker, let me begin by thanking and recognizing my very dear friend and a phenomenal leader in our country, Sheriff John Rutherford. Sheriff Rutherford served in law enforcement and continues to serve our great country today in the Congress. And he serves with distinction and a deep recognition that standing by our men and women who wear a uniform is not a partisan issue. It's an American issue. And it's what we should do for our communities and our country, and I'm grateful for him. Thank you so much, and it's an honor to serve as co-chair of the Bipartisan Law Enforcement Caucus, especially this week during National Police Week, when we honor the brave men and women in law enforcement and all the first responders who put their lives on the line every single day to protect our communities and keep our families safe. And of course, as the sheriff said, this is a particularly tough week because we recognize the fallen and honor the fallen, and of course, spend time with their families. But every day, officers and families from across our nation, they watch as their loved ones go off to protect us. So while we gather here in Washington to honor those who put on the badge and remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice, we also honor those who go out every single day. Earlier this month, Congressman Rutherford and I attended the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Ceremony here in our nation's capital, surrounded by thousands of names etched into that stone wall, names that represent heroes, families forever changed, and a debt we can never fully repay. You heard Congressman Rutherford share some of the names that will be etched onto that wall. This year, 363 brave officers will be added to the memorial, including 11 officers from my home state of New Jersey. Tonight, we honor their memory, their courage, and their sacrifice, and we recommit ourselves to them because the names on the walls, those are moms and dads and brothers and sisters and loved ones. So we commit ourselves to them, to getting the backs of the men and women who continue to serve. Because every single day when they wake up, our officers, and put on that bulletproof vest and kiss their spouses and children goodbye and head into unknown danger, they run toward that danger when many run away. They're the first to respond, often the last to leave, and far too often the ones we only recognize when tragedy strikes. That's why it's so important this week that we recognize them. But frankly, we should be doing this every day to honor the service. Because to me, the badge represents that service and sacrifice and an unwavering commitment, courage in the face of danger, and a true bond with the communities that officers serve every day. Mr. Speaker, supporting law enforcement should never be a partisan issue. I will say this time and again, it's why we are standing together on one side of the aisle, symbolically, because there should be no Democrat or Republican way to protect a community or stand by an officer. So that's why we're so proud to work together every day on legislation with a group of us. And support can't stop with words. It has to require action. That is why we continue fighting for common sense investments in public safety and in the officers who protect our communities. Together, we've worked to secure more than $1 billion in burn justice assistance grants and community-oriented policing services, resources to help local departments hire officers, improve training, and access critical support. We helped secure resources for bulletproof vests and hate crime prevention initiatives, and support for smaller departments and rural departments. We secured full lifetime resources for World Trade Center health programs so our 9/11 responders and survivors continue receiving the care they've earned and deserve. The sheriff talked about our push on the Bipartisan Invest to Protect Act, because we know that smaller and mid-sized departments need more, not less. They need help with retaining and recruitment and mental health resources, especially for our smaller departments who carry the burdens of the jobs home every day. We have to help them. And he talked about the Protect and Serve Act to ensure stronger penalties for those who deliberately target law enforcement officers in the line of duty. I also support, and have in the past, the Thin Blue Line Act, because if you deliberately hurt a cop, you're going to jail, and if you kill a cop, you should get the death penalty. And this week, during National Police Week, I announced the bipartisan Stop the Dox Act to protect officers and their families from targeted intimidation online. Because protecting law enforcement means protecting officers not only while they're serving on the streets, but also at home with their families. The idea that people are taking pictures of officers without their permission, pictures of their family, they're taking their information of their address and their phone numbers and putting that online to target officers is totally unacceptable. And as the sheriff said, if you target officers, Congress will target you. As I've said for years, we need to fund, not defund law enforcement to keep our communities safe. Weakening law enforcement does not make our communities safer. It drives good officers away, it strains departments, it undermines our communities and our public safety. But tonight is first and foremost about gratitude and honoring those who've served, those who've made the ultimate sacrifice. So to your families, to all those families out there, some of whom the sheriff talked about, God bless you. Thank you. We pray for you. We're here to take your tragedy and ensure that it is remembered with action. To those who continue to serve right now, thank you for the long hours, the missed holidays, the missed family dinners, for carrying the burdens most Americans will never fully understand. Thank you for your professionalism, your sacrifice, what you face on the streets every day, the disrespect you have to endure. To the families who stand beside these heroes every day, we thank you, all of them. Mr. Speaker, especially during National Police Week, we remember the duty and service are not without cost. We honor those sacrifices of those officers. Their service will never be forgotten, and their legacy will live on forever. I reserve and yield. Thank you. Thanks, man.
And now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield as much time as he may consume to my good friend from Georgia, Rick Allen.
Thank you, Sheriff, for yielding the time. Mr. Speaker, thank you for, Sheriff, thank you for hosting tonight's special order. It's a privilege to join you as we commemorate National Police Week and honor the upstanding men and women who serve our nation's law enforcement. When I travel in my district back in Georgia, I meet regularly with our sheriffs and law enforcement officers as much as possible. And I'm constantly in awe of the courage, selflessness, and heroism that they demonstrate every day for our communities. You know, here in the chamber, we are without excuse. We have right there above the speaker, "In God We Trust." We have Moses, the full face of Moses, who gave us the law. And I think the Apostle Paul penned it as well as anyone can. In fact, basically, God ordained government to restrain evil. That was the sole purpose. In Romans 13, the Apostle Paul said, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from fear of the one in authority? Then do what is right, and you will be commended. For the one in authority is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath, to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but also as a matter of conscience." And I'm going to tell you, this was drilled into me by my parents. And one of the things that is really disturbing in our culture today is the disrespect for authority in our nation. But I tell our police officers about Romans 13. It is the highest calling in this land to be called by God in authority to make sure that folks are safe and secure. On a daily basis, these officers choose to prioritize the safety of others above their own. Georgia's 12th District felt this ultimate sacrifice firsthand when one of our own, Deputy Brandon Sykes of Columbia County, lost his life in the line of duty last April. As the family in our community continued to mourn his tragic loss, we are reminded of his extraordinary service and find solace in Scripture. John 15:13 says, "Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends." That is, again, a high calling. We will never forget Deputy Brandon Sykes. I want to thank all of the officers serving in Georgia's 12th District and across the state of Georgia and throughout our country, including our own Capitol police officers here in the Capitol who work every day to keep us safe. I am proud to unequivocally stand with the men and women in blue and will continue to support their mission now and always. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. And now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to call Paul Gosar from the great state of Arizona, great supporter of our law enforcement officers across the country. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, to Chairman Rutherford, thank you for putting this on. And as due respect to the men in blue, men and women in blue. During National Police Week, I rise to honor the brave law enforcement officers who made the ultimate sacrifice, protecting you, our communities, and defending the rule of law. This year, 363 American law enforcement heroes are being honored at the National Law Enforcement Memorial. Among them are two courageous Arizona officers, Officer Gabriel Facio of the Apache Junction Police Department and Deputy Sean Broughton of the Maricopa County Sheriff's office. These heroes wore the badge of honor and gave their lives in service to others. At a time when the politicians on the left and the radical activists continue pushing soft-on-crime policies and demonizing police officers, we must be crystal clear. America is safer because of our law enforcement. The anti-police rhetoric coming from the left has emboldened criminals, weakened public safety, and made already dangerous profession even harder. I unapologetically stand with the men and women in blue. I stand with the officers who run towards danger while others run away. I stand with the deputies patrolling our neighborhoods, the border agents defending our sovereignty, and every law enforcement officer who risks their life to protect innocent Americans. To the families of Officer Facio and Deputy Bratton, and to all our fallen officers across our nation, we will never forget your sacrifice. Their courage and service represent the very best of America. That's all you can ask. May God bless our fallen heroes, their families, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Speaker, I'd now like to yield to a great champion of law enforcement in the state of New York, but also in our great country, Tom Suozzi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Congressman Gottheimer, for yielding time to me, and Congressman Rutherford, two great friends. I really admire the bipartisan work that both of you have done in the Law Enforcement Caucus. Thank you so much. It really means a great deal to all of us that you work together with such close collaboration. It's really a great honor for me to join with you here this evening. Tonight, as we recognize police officers who lost their lives throughout 2025, throughout our country, over 360 police officers, 13 of whom we lost in New York State. 11 of those 13 died of 9/11 related injuries and sicknesses. One was killed in a shooting, and another died of a heart attack after a physical altercation. I served as the mayor of a small city and oversaw the police department, and I served as the county executive of a large county and oversaw the 12th largest police department in the United States of America. And it pains me when I hear people criticize the police. And people need to recognize that tonight here in our nation's capital, as we honor law enforcement officials, police officers that lost their lives in the line of duty, sometimes in very tragic circumstances, that left behind families that were shattered. We also have to recognize that every single day, police officers go to work, and sometimes their jobs are very boring. They could go on a regular patrol, they walk a beat, they drive their car. Day goes by without incident. And then, without notice, they're called to an incident where they could lose their life in a shooting, breaking up a crime, in a fire. Other times they deliver miracles to people's lives when they stop a crime, when they deliver a baby, when they respond to a fire. Some days it's very mundane. People ask you for directions, say hello to folks that you see on a regular basis, do investigations. Other times it's 9/11. And you are put in harm's way that will challenge you for decades and decades after that incident. So I just wanted to join my colleagues here tonight, Democrats and Republicans, coming together to say to our police officers in our nation and in my 3rd Congressional District in New York, thank you for your service. We honor you, we respect you, we recognize how difficult your jobs are. We recognize that sometimes people don't treat you with the respect that you deserve, but we respect you and we admire you and we're grateful to you for the sacrifice that you've made on our behalves so that we can live with some sense of safety because of the safety that you provide to us. And I yield back.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, very honored to introduce another great New Yorker, someone who has been an avid champion of law enforcement like Mr. Suozzi. Ms. Gillen has been a great friend of those in blue. I yield.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to honor the brave law enforcement officers on Long Island and across our nation that we have lost, and the men and women who continue to serve and protect. I want to thank my colleagues in the Bipartisan Law Enforcement Caucus, Representatives Rutherford and Gottheimer, for organizing this special order hour during National Police Week to remember these heroes. Madam Speaker, every day our law enforcement officers put their lives on the line to keep our communities safe. They do so not knowing if they will return home safely to their loved ones. During National Police Week, we thank and honor the law enforcement officers who gave their lives to protect all of us. This month, I had the privilege to join my colleagues to lay a wreath at the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial and honor the 363 officers that we lost this year. It is our solemn duty to ensure that their sacrifice and contributions are never forgotten. Among the American heroes we lost last year was Police Detective Patrick Franzone of the Freeport Police Department from New York's 4th Congressional District. A U.S. Marine Corps veteran who grew up in Freeport, Detective Franzone's life was defined by service to his fellow Americans and to his community. He served in law enforcement for more than 30 years and shared his devotion to the Freeport families that he served also outside of work as the chairman of Toys for Tots. Following the 9/11 terrorist attacks, Detective Franzone bravely assisted with the search and recovery at Ground Zero as a first responder. On September 18, 2025, he tragically passed away from a 9/11 cancer that was associated with his heroic work in the rubble. His passing is a painful reminder of what our first responders' contributions can cost. Detective Franzone was a friend to all who knew him, a devoted father, and a true American hero. We will never forget his service to fellow New Yorkers and to our great nation, and we will ensure that his legacy lives on. Madam Speaker, I ask my colleagues to join me for a moment in remembering Detective Patrick William Franzone of Freeport, New York. Thank you. Thousands of our heroic law enforcement officers, firefighters, and emergency personnel continue to suffer from debilitating conditions from toxins at Ground Zero. That's why I was proud to help advocate bipartisan legislation to permanently fund the World Trade Center Health Program. I will continue to fight alongside my colleagues here today to make sure our law enforcement has the resources they need to keep their communities safe and to keep themselves safe. Whether it's more crime-fighting technology, cops and hiring grants, funding for improved access to mental health care, something that I care deeply about and am proud to have introduced peer-to-peer support advocacy counseling through my bipartisan bill introduced with Congressman Rutherford just this week. We must always have the backs of our law enforcement, and our families can sleep knowing that the brave men and women in uniform are protecting them, watching our streets, and safeguarding our communities. Thank you so much to each and every one of our law enforcement officers on Long Island and across our country. We owe you an incredible debt of gratitude. Thank you so much, and I yield my time back.
Thank you very much. God bless you. Mr. Speaker, at this time, I would like to yield to Mike Kennedy from the great state of Utah, true supporter and backer of our law enforcement officers across the country. Mike, as much time as you may consume.
Congressman Rutherford and Gottheimer, thank you for organizing this special order, and it's a reflection of the good things that happen here in Congress, Madam Speaker, is the fact that Josh Gottheimer can be here on the Republican side of the aisle, acknowledging something significant, and the fact that we as Republicans and Democrats can stand united behind the thin blue line between order and chaos, and sometimes between life and death. And I'm honored to join this distinguished group of people who recognize the significance of National Police Week, which is what we're doing this week. And in that memory of those that have given their lives, which I will review in my prepared notes in a moment, regarding that, we can't forget that we must remember those who continue to live in the service of our country in the form of what Representative Gillen just talked about. There are a variety of toxic exposures as well as mental health challenges that come along with the job associated with the chaos that sometimes our law enforcement officers have to deal with. And I want to point out as well that in Congress, there's a great deal of attention that is paid to the dysfunction and the disagreements, the arguments, and outright vigorous vitriol that goes back and forth between us, but there is far more that unites us, as reflected by Congressman Rutherford and Congressman Gottheimer as they organize this, and that we can unite together to honor our police officers who do a great service for our society. And we need to honor these men and women in law enforcement who serve our communities with courage, integrity, and sacrifice day in and day out. 250 years of American liberty has taught us that law and order is essential to a free society. Without order, our freedoms cannot survive. Our freedoms only hold because good men and women are willing to back it up, sometimes with their lives. This week, I especially, and the people in the state of Utah especially, remember Sergeant Lee Sorensen and Officer Eric Estrada of the Tremont and Garland Police Department, who gave their lives last August as they answered an average call for help from a citizenry who ultimately they gave their lives to try to respond to and help. In Congress, I and many others we will remain committed to backing the officers who need resources, support, and respect as they do their jobs. To every officer in Utah and across this country, thank you for keeping us safe. We are deeply grateful for all you do. And Madam Speaker, I will conclude by saying I don't believe that there's going to be a lot of attention given by the media to what is happening right now. But we need our country to recognize that there's a lot more good that is happening in Congress, even though we have our disagreements, that we find far more that unites us and we can work together on than those things that will divide us and cause us to be media clowns and have the circus of Congress be demonstrated on a regular basis. And so I'm proud to join with these great people to recognize something that is functioning well, and that's our law enforcement throughout the country, and the fact that we all can unite together to acknowledge that great service. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And with that, I yield back.
Madam Speaker, I think Congressman Kennedy said it best. I think Congressman Rutherford and I just leaned over each other after what you just said, Congressman Kennedy, and said that's exactly right. There's far more that unites us as a country than divides us. And we spend far too much time in this chamber and outside of this chamber tweeting and screaming and yelling instead of focused on getting things done for the American people and thanking those who serve our great country. And that's what this week is about, Police Week, to thank those who are getting up, continue to get up every day to protect us, and to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice protecting us and serving us. And we should honor them, as we should honor all those shoulders we stand on, by actually doing right by them, by investing in them, by supporting their families, by making sure that officers who are out there today on the front lines looking out for us have what they need to keep themselves safe and to keep our community safe. There should be no fights about that or disagreements about that. Right? No questions about whether we're going to fund law enforcement or not. Those should not be even issues of debate. They should be just about doing the right thing by people, by those who protect us, by those who serve us. People like Sheriff Rutherford, who served us before he was in this chamber, served us in Florida. Right? Looked out for families. That's the kind of service we should recognize. So what Congressman Kennedy said is exactly right. We should look out for each other. We should stand together. It should not be a thing that we're on this side of the aisle, because that's irrelevant. We stand in a chamber with a flag behind the speaker that we salute every day, right? And that we pledge our allegiance to every day, as we should. Because to me, there's so much to be proud of for living in this great country, the greatest country the world's ever known. There's so much to be grateful for as an American. And the reason we have this safety, this blanket of safety, is provided by others. Those who serve on the front lines are mil service men and women, and those who are here at home are law enforcement looking out for us. And they do it knowing the risks they take, the sacrifices they make, and what could ultimately happen to them and to their families if they make that ultimate sacrifice, which so many have. So we remember them, we honor them, but I would hope that we take their falling as a call to action for all of us in this chamber to protect all law enforcement, to invest in them, and to remember that this should not be a partisan political issue whether we stand by our law enforcement or not. This should not be a fight that we should ever have. The question should be, how much should we invest to keep them safe and to keep our country safe? And with that, I reserve and yield back to the co-chair of the Law Enforcement Caucus, a great man and a great friend, Sheriff and Congressman John Rutherford. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks, buddy. Thank you, Josh. And Madam Speaker, as we come together this year to celebrate the lives of 111 officers who paid that ultimate sacrifice, that full last measure, in service to their communities, I think it's very appropriate that we come together, not as Republicans, not as Democrats, but as Americans, to recognize those men and women. I can tell you, for the 41 years that I served as a law enforcement officer, I didn't serve Democrats and Republicans, I served the public. And still today in Congress, I serve Americans, not just Republicans and Democrats. And I think it's important that we do change the tenor. And this is a great opportunity to get that message out as we celebrate the lives of men and women who gave that last full measure of devotion. And so, for many years, I talked about law enforcement being a noble profession. Not because it was just about service, but because it was truly about service with self-sacrifice. And that's what we celebrate this National Police Week. And so I want to thank my good friend from New Jersey for being here, helping to put this together. I look forward to our continued collaboration on issues that are important to law enforcement and our communities. And with that, Madam Speaker, I yield back.